Before we start, I want to say that this episode will not be all doom and gloom, but I do need to set some things up in the beginning. And I want to start with the fact that we are living through multiple health crises in the United States right now. We have a physical health collapse. Heart disease, one of the leading causes of death, kills over 700,000 Americans a year. We know that cancer rates are on the rise. We know that life expectancy in the United States is unfortunately going down. We have a mental health epidemic where loneliness is skyrocketing, where we have suicide rates are up over 35% since the year 2000. 35%. We have gun violence, which seems to be never ending and increasing all the time. And we're told to take care of our physical health by just watching what we eat and exercising, which is all well and good. We know that mental health has seen a lot of improvements over the years, and this is incredibly important. But in my opinion, we have a long way to go here as well. But what if there was one type of health that connects all of these things together and is just as important as physical and mental health, but it's one that we're almost completely ignoring. And in fact, is one that our leaders and I would say tech companies are actively making worse. Hey, everybody, this is Maddie Stevenson, and this is Conscious Ground. And in our first couple of episodes, we set up the concept of manufactured disconnection, which is a system that actively encourages us to fight with one another, adding to our loneliness problem. We talked about some of its sources and impacts, so definitely go back and take a look at that one if you hadn't already. And in our last episode, we talked about how AI is making a lot of these problems worse. And in this episode, we are going to talk about the concept of social health, which ties into so much of the discussion that we've already been having. And by the end of this episode, I hope you'll understand a few things. One, I hope that you will understand what social health is and why it needs to be considered as a foundational need for overall health in our time. I hope you'll understand some ways to assess your own social health and some things you can do to improve it. And I would say, most importantly, why the next three episodes around connection, leadership, and solidarity are going to give you some more tools and practices to build your overall social health network that could literally save your life, but definitely improve your life and the life of others around you. And before we get started, I want to say that this episode was inspired by, and a lot of the stats come from two books that I've read over the last year, one being The Art and Science of Connection, the other one being a book called Social, which came out in 2013, but I feel was still really relevant to me in our times. And both of these, again, were huge inspirations to me and where a lot of these stats come from, and I will link them in the description below. So before we get going, let's set up a few other things here. I do want to quickly recap a little bit around manufactured disconnection. As I said, manufactured disconnection is a system. It is an intentional and deliberate system designed to keep us disconnected, to keep us fighting with each other rather than working together on some of the true causes of the things that are keeping us down today. This includes leaders in our lives. It includes tech companies, social media platforms, all of these things working together, encouraging us to fight with each other when we disagree. We have leaders that actively engage us in disowning the other side, making the other side an enemy when we simply disagree on things. We have social media and tech platforms that are literally preying on our emotions. They are engaging in our most negative emotions to keep us engaged, to keep the clicks happening. So all of these things are happening in concert and keeping us divided, keeping us incredibly lonely, increasing our loneliness. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, another one you should go take a look at if you haven't already, AI is having a real impact on these things as well. With AI, we are offloading a lot of our cognitive, our thinking load to AI, where we're using it for so much of our thinking these days. And a lot of people are starting to use it for emotional help, where they are starting to use AI as a person to listen to, as a pseudo therapist. And when we do that, we are offloading so much of our human capabilities to machines. And combined with manufactured disconnection, these other systems that are keeping us divided, we have a really bad recipe going on here. And so I want to talk about the few impacts of this. And this is where I want to pull up some stats that were staggering to me. So let's start with this. Half of US adults say no one knows them well. Half. Half of US adults say no one knows them well. This was mind blowing to me. Imagine not imagine people not knowing you well at all, not knowing your history, not knowing the things that you love, not knowing the things that you're scared of. If you're watching this right now, and you feel that way, I am so sorry, and I hope that a little bit of this info here can help. And I hope if you do have this in your life, if you do have people that know you in your life, you will consider some of these things here in extending yourself a little bit and why it's so important to work on these things. But half of US adults say no one knows them well. Wow. We've seen a 20% drop in close friendships over the last 30 years. And that makes that first stat so much more aligned to this, where we're losing our close friendships. This ties in very much with what I was talking about, our overall disconnection. And then we get to a stat around half of US adults saying no one knows them well. Just, again, mind blowing to me. This one also very staggering to me. 330 million people globally go up to 2 weeks without talking to another human being. Just, again, mind-blowing to me. Imagine going 2 weeks without talking to anybody else at all. And I'm a person who likes to try things. I like to do things for a week and try things out. And one of my first thoughts when I heard this stat was, oh, maybe I'll try it to see the overall impact. And it was just an incredibly sad thought. And I decided I absolutely don't want to do that. First, I don't know how I would do that, but imagine going 2 weeks without talking to anybody else. I think I personally would start to go crazy a little bit. And I think that might be what happens to many people who don't have a lot of connections in their life. I think this is really bad. So now let's talk about some of the effects of these overall stats. So when we are disconnected like this, it also affects our health. It affects our physical health. There's a 50% increase in getting dementia in your older age when you have a poor social network. Just imagine that, a 50% increase in dementia, which is it's just debilitating. And if you've had anybody in your life that's experienced dementia, it is really sad to see. So by having a poor social network, we're increasing our potential of getting dementia by half. And then combine what I just said around AI and how we're offloading things to AI, both cognitively and emotionally. And I feel like this stat is only going to exponentially increase if we don't do something about it. Another stat here, you have a 30% chance increase in having a stroke if you have a poor social network. You have a 26% possibility of increase of dying early, of a increase in your potential to die early, 26% by having a poor social network. So I hope you might be as shocked as me when I first heard this, because it's incredibly important. These stats rival obesity and smoking, and they rival the opiate epidemic that we're seeing as well. I think it all ties into this. I think that it is all incredibly tied together, and we're clearly, in my opinion, from what I've seen in studying this, and I don't see this talked about a lot, we are not paying attention to an incredibly important area of our health. And as I said in the beginning, in fact, we're allowing our society to exponentially accelerate this, whether that's our leaders encouraging us to do it, or we're tech platforms that are allowed to prey on us like this. And our brains evolved over time and are wired to be, we are wired to be social creatures. We are wired to collaborate and work together. And in reading a couple of these books, it's no wonder that our brains evolved to do this. We had to survive. But now we are going against all of this. And no wonder it has such an impact on our physical health as well as our emotional health, and why it is something I think we really have to do something about. And so I think one of just the main things to hammer home around this is you could eat perfectly. You could exercise really well all the time. You could be taking care of your own mental health as best as you can on your own. You could be doing all of this and you could still be dying or have a chance of all of these health effects from being disconnected, from having a poor social network in your life. And that, again, just makes it so much more important to me that we talk about this and we work on it. Let's move into a little bit about what exactly, though, social health is. And to put it bluntly and quickly, social health is essentially just the amount of people you have in your life, but also the quality of those connections you have in your life, the depth of those overall connections you have in your life. Things like, how much do people know you? How comfortable are you to be around some of these close connections? Can you really be yourself? Can somebody notice if you're having a bad day? These kinds of connections are really important. And also, some of the more light connections that you might brush off are also equally important. So, let's go into a few of those and what this kind of whole concept encompasses. Well, one, it absolutely includes your one-on-one relationships, your friends, your family, your loved ones, your partners. It includes that group of people, obviously, as a big part of your overall social health. It also includes your community. This is a really big one, and I think is really important, and something we're losing even more and more these days, where your community, the people around you, the people in your town, the people in your neighborhood are a huge part of your potential social health network. And I don't know about you, but I know I've seen the degradation of my community network quite a lot over the last few years. And these are people that are close to you. These are people that could support you when you had an emergency, when you needed something. And these are also people that you can work together with on improving things in your neighborhood and your town. But imagine all the things that we are losing when we don't have community in our lives, groups in our lives that we are a part of, where we're doing something, where we're sharing things together, we're sharing in actions, we're also sharing in our experiences. Another one that is encompasses social health is just our weak ties, which I think is incredibly important as well. These are people that you just see in your day to day. This could be a person at the coffee shop. This could be your delivery driver. The point here is that we have a lot of interactions throughout our day, and you can have a quality interaction with someone that you don't really know. And I think this is something we are also really missing right now. I know that I have seen myself back away from the smallest of social interactions. And I imagine that this is happening for a lot of people, or even most people. And I think this is a big part of what's going on right now. Imagine if we could have a little bit better interactions with those just few second interactions with people we are having in our day to day. It could really improve things, as we'll see. And so this adds up to a system of belonging. It's incredibly important to feel like you belong, that you are a part of a group, that you are part of something. As I said before, this can come from community. This can be come from being a part of a local group in some way, or a virtual group. But this is where you have support. You have people that know you. You have people that see you consistently, and where you feel like you are part of something. And this is really, really big. And I think one of the big problems we have these days is when people feel like they don't belong, when they're feeling left out, and when they're really struggling, they will find belonging in toxic places, which I think is happening a ton right now, where people are turning to groups that are that maybe help them feel some belonging, but also are incredibly damaging to themselves in the long run. So I just want to review once more kind of where we are in society. Think about where we are right now, where things are so incredibly divisive, where it just seems to be ramping up. I know my anxiety levels are just around the overall divisiveness that we're seeing in the United States. It's stressful to me, and so I imagine it's stressful to a lot of people out there. But just think about where we are right now, and think about the impacts of some of the things I just mentioned and all of the potential connections you could have there and how they're really degraded. But just imagine where they could be if this gets worse, if we continue down this path. And as I said, we have a entire system that is encouraging us to do this, and it seeps into so much of our lives, as I hope you see right now. And I say this a lot, but a lot of this really is on us because the system I describe, it's designed to keep going this way. It's not going to change. We need to work on this ourselves. We need to be aware of these things. We need to share it with others, and we need to practice what I'm going to go into in a minute, because we can do a lot of things that keep us connected. We can take small steps that can turn this around, but it is on us because we have this entire system against us. So, what exactly can we do? Where can we get started? And I'll take a couple of cues from the books here. One is in terms of just taking some immediate action. One, just become aware of and identify what your inner circle could be. And your inner circle, as described by the Art and Science of Connection, is a small group of people, usually 1 to 3 to 5 people that know you really well. They're the people that you will call on when you're maybe in most need, when you need help, when you have an emergency. These are the people that know you best. They know your history. They know what makes you happy, what you're into, what your hobbies are. Identifying, if you don't already know, who these people are in your life. And yeah, the book recommends, if you were to think of, oh man, who would I call if I was in trouble, and who comes to your mind? These people would likely be your inner circle. So you can identify those people, know who they are. You can also identify your local community and groups, people you know in your local vicinity. I'm sure you know of people in your local vicinity, but you might not be connected or connecting with them much. But get an awareness and an understanding of those people in your life, those areas of connection in your life. And a lot of this is around just growing awareness. Who would be your inner circle? What areas or people in your community would you maybe want to connect to more? And remember that people you don't know can be a meaningful source of connection here. That is another thing to be really aware of. You can find, this is huge to me, you can have meaningful connections with people you don't even know. And I think just having awareness of that, knowing that, and remembering that is one of the first steps that we can take here. So once we've built that awareness, who our inner circle is, where could we find connection in our local community, maybe in our town or neighborhoods, and knowing that we can make change in really small interactions with people we don't know, then we can move on to the next step. And the next step in the book is recommended a system called 5-3-1. And in step 5, this is where you're going to make a commitment and an intention to connect with 5 people in a meaningful way per week. This means going deeper than surface level. Hopefully, it's a two-way interaction where you might share something about yourself, share something about how you feel. You might show some appreciation for the other person. You might notice something that you really like and appreciate about them and share that with them. It's about showing that you notice and you care about that interaction. Doing that 5 times a week. And remember, this can be people in your inner circle. This can be people in your community. This can be people that you don't even know that you are passing by on the street or having a short interaction with. You can take a couple of moments to deepen a conversation or an interaction, go a little deeper than surface level, and this is going to really positively impact you and likely the person you're talking to. Part number 3 in the 531 system is maintaining 3 really close relationships. These are people likely in that inner circle that we mentioned before. That means you're going to, we've already talked about identifying those people. You're going to spend a little time just you're going to spend a little time just encouraging and growing and maintaining those relationships where this might involve just checking in with one of these people or making time to do a 10-minute call with them. But the point here is you are going to intentionally spend time keeping these inner circle relationships, these deeper relationships going and strong. That way you can, yes, you can keep some continuity between these really important people in your life, and they can continue to know about you and you know about them and be those supports to each other. So again, maintaining at least 3 connections with some of those inner circle or deeper connected people in your life. And the last component of the 531 system is spending 1 hour a day on meaningful social interactions. And this to me at first seemed like a lot, man. Oh man, there's so little time in the day to spend in meaningful social interactions. But when I started to think about it, I said, actually, it's not that hard. Hopefully, you have people in your life, loved ones that you are with every day, whether that's your family, maybe your children, your partner, maybe that's extended family, and that you can spend a little bit of time having a meaningful interaction with them. But then I started to think about some of the people that you don't know well in your life. And I know I come across people all of the time. When I'm going through my day to day, I talk to people at work, and I realize those interactions could be a great point just to deepen the conversation a little bit. And I started to realize that an hour a day doing this does not seem all that difficult, especially if we get it into practice more, because this it's all a practice, and this builds up the muscles of connection that we have been losing for so long. And I really do believe and feel and know from experience that the more we do this, the more that I do this, the easier it is. And I would say read the books that I mentioned in the description for even more details and suggestions on this. There is a lot more, of course, that you can do around this, but I also just want to talk about longer term. What can we do longer term about this? And I have to say, this is one reason why we here at Conscious Ground exist. We exist to bring awareness to these systems, to bring awareness to these problems, but also to provide tools and actual practices and things you can do to improve them. We offer opportunities to practice these human skills that are withering. And it's just so important, again, to practice making these connections with others meaningful again. And that is exactly some of the things we'll be getting into in the next 3 episodes, which I hope you'll join us for. And before we close, I do want to point out some maybe common complaints or common problems that might come with this. And I think one of the big thing is, oh my gosh, it's going to take so much energy and time to do this. It's going to take so much energy and time to have more interactions with people. I already have so much in my day to day. It's already so hard. And I completely get that. I completely get and connect with that. And I think it's very true. But I think the consequences of not doing this are worse. I think the contributions to our own self is worse. I think our impact on our society is worse if we don't do this, and I think it exponentially affects all of us. And I think if you do take the time to do this, you are contributing to society as well as yourself, which is just a huge impact overall. And imagine if we started to do this at scale. Imagine if more and more of us started to do this, the impact it would have on those around us, or maybe our communities and beyond. So as we close, hopefully by now you know that social health, it's not just a nice to have thing. It is essential for us to survive, to be healthy in the world. And in a world, I would say, of manufactured disconnection and all of the impacts we're going to see from AI. And I would also say it is a powerful act of resistance. When we have entire systems working to keep us divided, working actually to do the opposite, to actually say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to try to stay connected with people as best I can, to me is a powerful act of resistance these days. And this is where, again, our next 3 episodes come into play, where we're going to discuss exactly how you can build connection, how you can be a leader in human interactions and relationships, and how we can really work together toward shared goals, even when we disagree. So, as we close here, just a final call and ask. As always, we are trying to create a positive energy and positive change here. So if you agree with any of what I've said today, please give us a like to amplify this out. And of course, follow us for our next episodes. You can check for our first event is coming up. We are launching our event series, and we have our first event coming up in November. You can find that in the description as well. And let's ask a question as we close out. Please drop something in the comments. What is one relationship in your life that you would want to invest more energy into now that you've known all this? Just think about that for yourself. And maybe more in general, do you see the same things in your life? Do you think social health is important now that you've heard a little bit more about it? Do you think we can do anything about it? I do, and that is why we are here. So thank you so much if you've gotten to this point. And until next time, as we say, stay conscious and stay grounded best you can. And we'll see you soon.